Across the board, women continue to earn less than men. White women make about 80 cents to a man's dollar. Black women earn 66 cents. Native women and Latinas, just 58 cents. And Asian American women, though often reported higher earnings, still face wide pay gaps depending on ethnicity and industry. The numbers tell a story about the urgent need for change. I'm Julene Allen, and this is Conversations for Equal Pay, where we talk with leaders, innovators, and change makers about closing the gap and uplifting women of color in the workplace. You're listening to Conversations for Equal Pay.
We're talking to Karla Pineda today, the Executive Director of the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement, or LCLAA. Karla is a powerful voice for Latinx workers and their families, leading efforts to advance economic justice, labor rights, and equity in the workplace. Her work continues LCLAA's mission to ensure that the voices of Latinx workers are heard and that their contributions are recognized across every sector of our economy. Karla, thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you for the invitation.
So Karla, there is a wage gap for Latinos across all sorts of sectors. What are the biggest systemic reasons that keep Latino workers from earning equal pay?
So, when we talk about the wage gap, it's not about individual choices that, Latinas especially make. There's a lot of barriers that shape where and how Latinas work, right? So some of those issues could be occupational segregation, right? Latinas are concentrated in industries that are either low wage, right? Like the hospitality industry, domestic work, agricultural too, right? And these are jobs that are essential, but unfortunately they're undervalued, right? So other issues that influence the gap for Latinas is also access to education, right? So we lack access to education, mentorship, but we also understand that having a degree also doesn't mean that you're gonna make more money, right? Because we're still, even when you have a degree, you still find yourself in that situation. Other issues could be discrimination to either get promoted or even get higher. A lot of discrimination can be based on race, gender, your ethnicity, your age. Immigration is another immigration status and language barrier. It's another issue, right? We know that undocumented women, undocumented Latinas are more vulnerable to harassment, to wage theft, and they don't find, sometimes they don't have a way to deal with those things, right? But they need to make money. They need to take care of their families, so they just accept those conditions sometimes. Another issue that we have seen is lack of family-friendly policies, right? Like paid leave. When we're mothers and we have to take care of our children and we don't have access to paid leave, sometimes we have to choose between taking care of a family, having a job, and sometimes we call that the motherhood penalty, right? Or we sometimes we're also skipped for being mothers on promotions or opportunities for training. If you have to travel, sometimes they assume that, well, you have a child or you have kids, so we're just going to send someone who doesn't, right? And typically sometimes those are men, right? Even though they also have children. So those are some of the issues, right, that we have seen.
And we know that when you do everything right, Latinas still face a pay gap. The when you control for education, they face discrimination in the workplace. They also face something called the broken rung, in which sometimes they're not sought out for leadership or management opportunities, which prevents them from securing higher paying roles.
Correct, correct. Um, and we've seen this, right? Like I said, like I mentioned, the education piece. Right now, we see that women, Latinas with a master's degree are still earning the same as white men with an associate degree, right? So that's challenging because we're also trying to invest in our education. We put the time, but we're still not being considered. We're being skipped on promotions, like I said, and trainings and opportunities to advance in the workplace.
Yeah. So moving on to my next question, the Latina pay gap is often stated as Latinas earning around 54 cents for every dollar earned by white non-Hispanic men. Can you translate this staggering disparity into real life economic consequences for Latinx families in the broader community, especially concerning wealth building, education, and health equity?
Yeah, so we see that, as you said, it's 54 cents. For some women, also depending where, what country you come from, that could be even lower, right? We have seen some women, I believe if you're from Guatemala and you work in a rural area, those women are only earning about 29 cents to the dollar. So based on the 54 cents right now, we're losing about over $1 million, about $1.2 million in a 40-year career. And that tends to change depending on what the number will be next year. We're not looking to earn, to get pay equity until over in 150 years from now.
Yeah.
Right. So you and I are never gonna get to see this.
Which is insane.
Which is insane, yes. So, and what does this mean for us as women? I think, this can impact a lot of things. Being able to afford a home, pay your rent, pay your bills. Sometimes we have to choose between paying for healthcare versus feeding our family. This can be you can miss out on having a savings account for an emergency. A lot of us can't afford to put money aside. Um, Buying groceries, paying for childcare. If you have children, you can't afford daycare or quality daycare sometimes for your kids. For young Latinas, like you can't afford to go to college sometimes, right? Based on how much money you're earning. So those are real life, cases. Like we all need to survive. We all need to live. And the gap is really hurting, the most vulnerable women.
It leads to so basically over a 40-year career, they lose $1 million, actually over $1 million.
Over.
And that leads to multi-generational insecurity.
Exactly. Yeah, and if we can, I have a daughter myself, and if we can afford, a lot of times, especially in Latino families, you buy a home and that's your children's home, and or you can invest in your retirement also, right? And that's money that you can leave for your kids or pay for their education, and we cannot do that right now.
So LCLAA works closely with the labor movement. How does unions and collective bargaining serve as a powerful tool for addressing the systemic issues in the Latina pay gap?
Yeah, so we always say, for us, one of the roles that LCLAA has taken on in this campaign for the last, I know we just celebrated 10 years, but we actually been doing this a little bit longer since 2012 about, is promoting unionization. We say unions are a powerful tool that we need to learn about. We need to know how to organize in the workplace. Unions, if you have a collective bargaining agreement with a contract, right? The pay discrimination doesn't exist, right? You will get paid the same amount, no matter, if you're a woman or if you're Latina. That doesn't influence how much money you make, as long as you're still within the same job as a man. So that eliminates that. Also, we also understand that women in unions earn about 22% more. Salaries are about 22% higher for all women. And for Latinas, it's about 40%.
Yeah.
Right? Latinas can earn up to 40% more if you're in a union job. Unions also give you a lot of those other things we talked about, which is medical insurance. You have benefits. You have sometimes you have paid leave. You have vacations. You also have something that's very important. It's a pension, a retirement um, uh, plan, right? That helps you invest in your future. So unions should be seen right now. We see unions as the one of the only solutions that we have until we can change the system. They also ensure another thing that unions will do for you is besides all the benefits, it's also making sure that we have good working conditions, right? Which is important that you're in a safe job. Collective bargaining agreement also include causes against discrimination and against sexual harassment, which is another issue that we face as women.
Yeah. You're really showing why unions remain one of the most effective equalizers in the workplace.
Correct.
So, LCLAA is involved in advocacy at all levels. What are one or two key policy measures, whether state level pay transparency laws or federal bills like the Paycheck Fairness Act, that you believe will have the most immediate and significant impact on closing the wage gap for women of color?
So besides the Paycheck Fairness Act, I think we need to go back to having the conversation about um, the Raise the Wage Act, right? We believe that if we can get that passed, even though some states have their own state policies, but I think at the federal level, that would really impact a lot of women that are in those industries that I mentioned, right? Especially women in the service industry, domestic workers. The Raise the Wage Act would increase that hourly pay to about $17 across the board. There's about 60% of women that will benefit from this because these are industries where women are overrepresented. And out of that 60%, 1 in 3 women are women of color. Right. So this would be a big change for them. It would create economic security, right? When you know that you're gonna earn more, it brings stability. It will also reduce some of the harassment and the wage theft problems that we see. So I think that's one. The other one that I would probably mention is the Family Act.
Yeah.
We just it was just introduced. We supported, the Family Act. And what this means is the women would get pay leave, right? Pay leave to take care of their families, right? So these are benefits that not everybody has. When you're pregnant, you have a child. Most women don't have maternity leave as part of their work contract. So women would get 12 weeks of leave, and it would be paid. All right. So I think that can help also another big group of women. It also ensures that companies are covering this, no matter the size. A lot of times we say, well, it's only big companies that cover this pay leave. Well, now it would create across the board, like no matter the size of the company that you work for, they would have to give you that. So like I said, those are probably two of the things that would help kind of normalize wages and support women.
And a lot of people don't really know that the federal minimum wage is $7.95 an hour.
Exactly.
And raising the federal minimum wage just does not just impact one group of people, it impacts everyone.
Everyone, exactly. And then, like with the pay leave too, there's about 60, I believe for Latinas, about 69% of Latinas don't have pay leave. Right. So And there's a lot, I think in the for Black workers, it's about 66%. Right. So these are huge, like we're not just talking about Latinas, but it's all workers of color that
Yeah.
would benefit from this. Mhm.
So, given the significant challenges women of color face in the hiring process and workplace, what is the most important practical advice you would give to a Latina or woman of color about negotiating her salary or a promotion?
So for me, I work with a lot of interns at LCLAA and a lot of students. A lot of them are women, young Latinas, and one of the advices I give them when you graduate college and you go get your first job, negotiate that salary. Your first salary is extremely important. I think that, I was young myself too, no training, didn't know how to ask for more money, and you can see right where you start. That I think that first salary really creates that foundation of you're just gonna go up from there, right? When you take a lower salary, you're really creating that, like you're already below, right? Whether it's 1%, 2%. So one is negotiate your first salary. A lot of times we don't know how to do that. So I say when you go to an interview, or you're whether you're negotiating a raise or your job, know your worth. I think that there's a study from that says, women that ask for a salary increase more than twice are most likely to get it.
Yes,
Right? So,
absolutely.
so, so what you can do is ask, but also when you ask, like I said, know your worth, know your rights, know what you're asking for. Um, Talk about your wins and what you're bringing to the table. I think that's really important. And how the company that you work with for will benefit from giving you this promotion or from hiring you. Um, I think negotiating is not about being difficult. It's about asking for what you deserve.
Right.
Right.
And anchor your salary on market data. The data is out there,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
based upon your needs or your past salary history. And then also take account of your accomplishments as well.
Yes. Yes. Know your wins. Know how to speak for it. I think um, transparency has helped, right? Because now we can do research. We can go. I always tell women, go research the market, like you're saying. See what other jobs are out there and how much they're paying, so that you understand where you land
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. So for some Latina workers, issues like immigration status or language barriers make the pay gap even worse. How does LACLA make sure its work and solutions help the most vulnerable women like migrant or undocumented workers?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we do is everything is bilingual, because we know language is a barrier for a lot of women. So our work, everything that we're doing that we know that it's educational has to be in Spanish. That's key for us. Another thing is we produce a lot of educational pieces about know your rights. Under the current administration, there's so many things happening that it's really hard to keep up with,
Yeah,
right? So we take a lot of this information. We do a lot of explainers, a lot of one pagers, again, bilingual, so that workers understand what are the changes that are happening, if it's whether it's good or bad. Even like I said, the Family Act, right? A lot of them don't understand what that means. So we summarize it, we put it in one page, we do it in Spanish, we do workshops, webinars, we'll talk to workers about it, and why they need to support this legislation. With women, we understand that, for example, farm workers are not able to organize, right? They're excluded from joining a union, but we still provide the same information. I think that whether you're in a union or not, there's still ways that we can still create those policies, whether it's through like collective action or working with farm worker organizations to bring the resources that LACA produces to them. And I think that's a way for them to also, have that support system that they need in the workplace, whether they're unionized or not.
Yeah. And that's such an important reminder that advocacy should include every type of worker, not just people with privilege and access. And I commend LCLAA for its legislative presence.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And it's extremely important. I think that, 53 years ago, we were created to support workers within the labor movement, within the unions. But we've moved beyond just unionized workers because we understand that organizations like LACA are the ones that are going to bridge the gap between our communities and labor. Right? A lot of times workers don't understand how unions do, or they say, well, unions just come and take my money and I can't pay that, but why am I paying? So we do a lot of that education, a lot of it's in Spanish so that they understand the value, right? Where your money is going if you are in a union, what are the benefits that you're going to receive based on your contributions. So and we also talk to the labor movement and our unions, and we say, unions also need workers of color. They need Latinos, they need Black, they need Asians to survive. And if we want to survive and want to grow, we need to talk to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So my last question, many corporations publicly commit diversity and inclusion. In your view, what is the most important action employers must take to move beyond symbolic gestures and institute genuine, measurable accountability for achieving pay equity for their Latina employees?
One, I think corporations really need to understand the value that Latinas bring to their companies. A lot of times we're the bilingual employees, right? We speak two languages, and sometimes we don't get paid for it, right? We only get paid for one, but we're really doing double work. So they need to value that. They need to value our language, and our what we bring to the table. I also think corporations need to start investing. It's not like you're saying, it's not just saying they support us, but start investing in our communities, do outreach to our communities, high school, college students. They need to be present, and you need to really talk to especially new generations that are going to enter the workforce. Do more recruitment in our communities. Another thing that I talk about is training, right? Create those opportunities. Don't say, well, we have Latinas in our corporations, in our companies, but what else are you doing for them? Once they're in your company and they are doing great job, are you creating more opportunities? Are you opening those doors and those spaces so that they can move up in your companies? I think that's extremely important. And another one is, I think, with the elimination with DEI, right? We need to, as corporations, I think they need to continue to promote, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
Right. Just because these policies have been eliminated, they don't have to. They can continue to promote that within their corporations. And I think that would really speak to the work that you're doing to your company. And it gives you a different brand. I think that's also a lot of corporations care about their brand. And if you continue to promote this and you really show it, it's gonna build a different brand for you, right?
Yeah. And speaking of branding, it's not just about branding, it's about outcomes. Mm-hmm. And the fact that when you are more inclusive to Latinas, it also impacts the welfare of your fellow employees, of your other employees.
Exactly. And we know that when you have a team that is diverse, that, maybe we speak multiple languages, we understand different communities, different cultures, that's just really more value to you, right? Yeah. So and again, within that industry, I think they need to see that, and they need to show it by having more workers of color.
Absolutely. Diversity is important.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Good for the bottom line. So Karla, that's all the questions I have for now. Thank you for joining me today. It's been an honor.
No, of course, thank you, and I'm happy to speak a little bit more about this. I think you're doing a great job with this podcast, and we look forward to the next one, hopefully.
That's it for this episode of Conversations for Equal Pay. To tune into more episodes, log on to our website at conversationsforequalpay.org. You're listening to Conversations for Equal Pay.